All right, we'll get this meeting started. First thing on the agenda is to get approval of the meeting minutes from last month. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to look over those. Couple minutes there, and if I could, we can give a motion to approve those after you're done. Motion to approve. It's Matt, motion to approve. Any, do we have a second? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. None. Minutes are approved. Thank you. Going to the second item on the agenda, Carl G. Brewer Community Center 90% design concept, presented by Ella and Larry. The design council, the recommended action here is to approve the 90% design concept as presented. So that's the mindset we're going into. Ella and Larry, go ahead.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Hey, everybody. Good to see you. Okay. All right. So, yay, we're excited to present these designs for the Brewer Center. And I'm just so grateful that I get to be a part of this project and work with such talented artists. It's really exciting. And they've come up with some really beautiful designs for the space. It's going to be one of a kind in our city. So, yay. I'm just going to, is this look okay the way I'm sharing it? Let me see if there's a nice, better looking way. I think I'm just going to click through some of this and then Larry and Brian, if you guys have certain spaces that you want to chime in for sure. Okay, so Brian, do you want to start with these slides?
Can you hear me? Everything?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay, you got my audio. Great. Yeah, Brian Garvey, Principal SFS Architecture. First of all, yeah, I'm super excited to be at this point with the Design Council and with this project in general. This has been a long road to get here, but we are well underway in construction. A lot of earth's been moved. The existing McAdams Center is well under construction, and getting ready to go vertical here probably in the next month or two with the new addition. So just want to remind everyone of the design statement that the team deployed on this project, that the Carl G. Brewer Community Center at Adams Park will be a unifying light that will recognize and build upon our history and offer opportunities for inspiration, structure, education, and recreation. So it's a key component to not only the design of the facility, but that this facility becomes a backdrop for both recognizing the past and looking forward to the future and inspiring a lot of youth that are going to come through the doors of this facility over the next 50 years. So there's not much more for me to say. We were the architect of record. We worked with Jana and the public art team to select Ella as the public art consultant, and then collaboratively worked together to select Larry Poncho Brown for the public art piece of this. And then Larry can talk about his team and how he's going to be delivering all of this wonderful artwork. So I'll turn it over to Larry. I don't have your audio, Larry.
There you go. Sorry. We had to select 2 artists from the Wichita area, and part of the requirement was also to have an Ghanaian contingency, which I happen to have adopted a studio in Ghana. So I have 2 wonderful artists that are from that proportion, and I also came up with 2 wonderful artists from Wichita. And so trying to gel this group, as you can imagine, would be a challenge, but I think so far we've managed to hold things together rather well. So Adifo Evans is one of the selections from the Ghanaian artist. He is very, very experienced in muralization. He's probably going to be my top artist from the Ghanaian contingency. Ofori Kessie also studied under Mr. Adifo Evans. So between the 2 of them, anything that's going to be dealing with realism, they will be definitely helping me with. And as far as local talent is concerned, we selected Priscilla Brown as one of our Wichita artists. We had a selection of 4 artists at the time. we whittled it down to 2, and I thought that these 2 artists would make a great asset to our team. We also have Paris Cunningham, and so far each one of them have shown me that they're capable of even taking on a project like this. So next slide. I guess Ella can talk about the schedule a little bit, and I can talk back a little bit about the art.
So where we are right now, we're at the Design Council 90% review, and once we have your approval to proceed, then we'll start with some of the fabrication of these designs. So there's several elements that are going to be printed on vinyl, and there's some pieces that are going to be translated to glass. So I guess getting those in their best version for those fabrication processes is what would be next. And then there's one piece that's pretty large on that will go on the existing building, but we want to make sure there's no dirt flying through the air, no shovels, no construction equipment of any kind before we actually put anything into the space. There's also some what do you call those? Not archives, but I guess they're archives, assets that Mrs. Brewer has shared, some pictures and newspaper articles, some things like that, that we're going to be looking at how to include in the space as well. So those will be our next steps towards installing after the building is complete. And Brian can give you a little bit more information about that part.
Well, I would just add that in addition to the work that Pancho and his team are doing and delivering to the project, we have a lot more than that. I think that's going to be addressing the storytelling aspect of this building and this project. So whether that's patterns, colors, an overlap of the artwork into some of the architectural elements, whether that's laminated glass, whether that's light fixtures, whether that's space for art, or space for photography, kind of to tell that story. So, but we are kind of on track for summer 2025 and opening. So most of the installation you'll see will be occurring late spring, early summer, as the project wraps up in construction. Certainly don't want to put any of that at risk.
So the first piece that we discussed was a mural for the existing facade. And this will probably be a hand-painted mural. This was actually submitted by Ms. Odifo Evans with some collaboration with myself. We did when I was driving through the area, I noticed that there were some facades that are very similar to what I've seen actually in Ghana. So I tried to incorporate those 2 things together to kind of get a sense of the village, of community, with a touch of the past and a touch of the future. And so we do envision painting this on the whole front end of the existing structure. That will be a hand-painted execution. This also is a piece of resilience. We have been floating around with what space to use this in, but I think we're going to end up putting this in the main court in an existing building. There's an excellent concrete, not a cinder block wall space that we could put a fabrication of vinyl on top of to depict that piece. That piece is about resilience, it's about youth. When I talked to the community, it was funny that they all kind of were reminiscing about their past and their childhood in this particular space. So I wanted to capture that energy in the existing building.
So for reference for everyone, that location, the pair of doors you see on the right go into the meeting spaces. The single door there by that lady is into the kitchen. And then further to the left there, that's the office, the entryway, and the pair of doors that went into the gymnasium at the McAdams Center.
So along the way, we've been trying to find other ways to incorporate a actual photo of Mr. Brewer. And so we decided in the one area in the entry vestibule to do a tile treatment of his face in that area, which I thought would be really, really nice. This is a 90% rendering of that, but we may also incorporate some fabric patterns into this piece at some point. These are very, very important. Adifo Evans is he's Ghanaian born, and there are 2 elements that we're going to be using in this space that are very, very important. Mr. Brewer had an amazing experience in Ghana, which is why we are even considering a Ghanaian aspect to this project. So what we've done here is he's created some fabric patterns. Now, kente cloth patterns are very, very popular in Ghana. They all have different meanings. The placements of them have different meanings. So we thought it'd be wonderful to utilize many of these patterns in glass and other wall treatments. And so this is one of the designs that Mr. Odifo laid out, and we have placed it on the walls. We've also placed it within the glass of the doorways, just to give you an idea of how we plan to, you know, institute color and history in this space. He has done 3 different designs. We will be playing with those 3 designs to see which one transmits better in this particular space. But he's done 3 different versions of that, and will be willing to do other versions of that if needed. If you also look at that meeting sign, you see a symbol on that sign, which is also an Adinkra symbol. Adinkra symbols there are about 80 of them that represent different aspects of virtue. And so we're planning to incorporate not only kente cloth patterns, but to include some Ghanaian Adinkra symbols in the design. This is another one of the designs that he has submitted. We are now toying with the idea of whether to do a rendition of this as he painted them originally with the raw brush strokes, or we can even do a more digital cleaned up version if we need to. We're still deciding amongst the team how that is going to translate. And we will be looking at that, especially going into the fabrication phase. This is a meeting room.
Sorry.
So no, that was me delay. A meeting room rendering where you can see how we can utilize those patterns to kind of pull things together in space. We also toyed with an idea of doing a reflection of Mr. Brewer. This is called The Dreamer. Shows a picture of him very, very young, and a current photograph of him that was taken from many of the photographs that Mr. Brewer has supplied. Also have the Wichita flag in the background. So we thought about it'd be nice to have one treatment room that has kind of that reflection of from the past to the future, to show a gateway between the youth that are going to be there to the adults that are going to be there. So I thought it'd be a nice way to tell that story with that one face. I think it's very, very powerful.
This is in this mural is in the dining room space. And this is another where you see the wall is blank here. That's another opportunity for us to put some of those artifacts that I was discussing previously.
Okay, so before Kessie is also one of the artists, part of our team. He's very good with realism and utilizing patterns and Adinkra symbols particularly. And we have, we have a area by the concessions that we're trying to also honor Mr. Brewer, and that he was a grill master and he enjoyed food. So we thought it'd be nice to do a treatment like that near the concession area. We're also, when I'm thinking about incorporating a mixture of that image and some Adinkra, some kente cloth patterns to kind of tie everything together.
This is one of the possibilities for a framing system that can be interchanged. So it's just plexiglass. It has 4 points where it attaches to the wall with standoffs. And so this is just to give you an example of how we might install some of the artifacts.
So in the lounge wall, there are a couple of wonderful wall spaces, and we utilized Ms. Priscilla Brown and her vision to pull this together, also incorporating some of Mr. Odifo's patterns. So as you can see, the artists are really melding together well for this project. I mean, for two to be in Africa, and two to be in Wichita, or me being in Baltimore, to be able to gel this kind of group together with this amount of talent is kind of an exciting circumstance. And so I'm looking forward to seeing everything come to fruition. But this is another wall treatment, and I think we have another rendering of where that would be placed. As you can see, this is a concept rendering of she did two actual pieces. One was a salute to icons from the region, and the other is of some leaders in the region. And so we decided those two spaces might be a good space for those two images because they have a lot of balance to them, even though the subjects are very different. This is a close-up of one of the hallway murals. We are envisioning doing this in vinyl as a vinyl treatment on the wall. Now, vinyl treatments come a lot of different ways. I know it sounds very bland, but vinyl can be textured, it can be flat, it can be glossy. We're going to choose the best surface for this particular project. Technology is really on our side. And so right now we're doing a really good deep dive into finding different fabricators. Now, most of my fabricators that I use in this area, and now have to try to find other sources closer to Wichita to save on expenses of working with people that are working here in Baltimore and within the region that I am in. And so this is just another close-up rendering of that particular wall treatment.
We have an opportunity with there's a Black Educators Hall of Fame, and every year there's new members that are inducted, and so they have a collection of hand-drawn portraits, and so their portraits don't have a home. Every year WSU gives them space to display these, and they pack them up and put them away. So we thought this would be a great home for these images. I mean, these artworks. If we rewind back one, these two women, the woman on the left is Jo Brown. She was the first Black person on the Wichita Public School Board. And then Dr. Alicia Thompson on the right was the first Black female superintendent of Wichita Public Schools. And then these are some educators in our community. Oh, wow. Why can't I think of their names? I know these people. Oh no, I'm being recorded and I can't say their names. Okay, I'm sorry, y'all. I apologize. I'm gonna think of it when we get off of here. But there's a lot of people. So this is kind of how we were envisioning this representation, that on one wall, their portraits would be using this as a background. The textile is the background, and the opposite wall would be Dr. Thompson and Dr. Brown's portraits.
And they'll also be attached to the wall. This is just a rendering. They'll be attached to a wall with the acrylic system that we showed you a couple slides back. We may be getting rid of that last row. Right now, I don't know exactly how many portraits there are, but with them continuing to create them, we try to make space just in case we have to go down one level below. And so I think that'd be a great usage of the space, and it'd be a great space for to have a discussion about the leadership in the area.
Hey, Ella, Pancho, just a point of clarification. The patterning in the background on the wall, that would be continuous, and then these would be overlaid over that,
Yes.
correct? Okay.
Sir.
So it won't be a series of empty white rectangles there.
No, it will not. That's just give you an idea of the placement of the actual portraits. I only had a few of them in hand to actually do the rendering with, but and it's just to show you how it would look. And we showed you the acrylic treatment that we're thinking about using, which is very, very professional museum grade treatment that we use to show photographs and illustrations. It'd be a nice tie-in.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, I had to look up these people's names. So this is Sheila Kennard. There's Dr. Robert Weems. I think that's Levanta. She was a teacher a long time ago. And I can't think of the last lady's name, but I will before we get off this call because it's important.
So we have the multipurpose room. We've toyed around with a couple of different designs in that particular space, and none of them seem to elevate for the space. And then Mr. Odifo did a real universal symbol. Of course, we're trying to use the sunflower. We're trying to use, and he thought, well, the butterfly is a universal symbol of beauty and transformation and a metamorphosis. So we thought that would be a great backdrop for the multipurpose room. This is also a cutaway. I know we showed you earlier that wall treatment that had the signage, and all we plan to do is to incorporate some different symbols. All of them are very sculptural in appearance. We might even do a thing where we have a definition of what each one of those virtues mean. But this is just so you get an idea how we're going to incorporate that with the existing signage. It could be a nice set off with the kente cloth patterns that are being utilized. And we have our suggestions for the gym. Of course, we have Ms. Person Cunningham. She's doing a deep dive into finding the athletic leaders or that we want to reflect in the gym. These are her renditions of those pieces. There is a wall treatment in there that is a wood wall treatment, and we plan to apply vinyl to that also. As you can see, the gym has many cutaways. It's got natural light coming through. It's tons of windows, and it's huge. And so we wanted to come up with some graphics that can break that up while trying to give honor to some of the athletes that are in the area.
And I remember the last person is Marsha Fleming Randall. She's a doctor at Wichita State. She's also a professor. Okay. Any questions?
That's an overview of our plans.
Thank you, guys. Personally, I like this. I mean, I'm familiar with the building. I'm familiar with the area. This is something that's much needed for our community. I think right now the existing facility there is fairly institutional. It's not exactly super welcoming, if you will. I think this is going to change a lot of that. But I think, Janet, similar to what we did last week and what we found out, are we doing public commentary first and then go on to design council comments and questions? Or how did we do it last time?
Actually.
How about we do that? How about, since I'm running the show today, I just do it.
However
So at this time, we'll take public commentary if there's any regarding this particular project. I don't think we have any. So design council, we'll start going around the room. If you have any questions or comments for Ella and Larry, feel free. We'll start with you, Emma. Do you want to start that end?
I did have one question. You had mentioned the artifacts a couple of times. What exactly does that consist of?
So there's a lot of photographs. There's some recipes that he created. There's some newspaper articles. There's some declarations and awards. So most of those are 2D. That's what I'm mostly referring to is two-dimensional representations that kind of give a larger impression of the things that he did and the way that he impacted Carl Brewer is who I'm talking about, the way Carl Brewer impacted the community. So it's hard to have an idea of who someone is from one static image, or what was important to them and the legacy they left. So we wanted to be able to use some of these things that we've been provided by Mrs. Brewer to fill in some of the rest of that history.
I have two questions. First, thank you so much for all of your work on this. I think it's really inspiring and I can't wait to see it. My first question is with the vinyl, kind of the lifespan or longevity of that, and if there's a plan for replacement in 5 to 7 years, if that's factored in to this project.
It has been factored in, and we're looking at longevity of the murals and how long they would last based on basic usage. We're looking at vinyl treatments, and now again with technology, longevity is the thing that can be acquired by technology now. So I can't give you the actual reports because I don't make the materials. But what I can tell you is vinyl is a very, very durable. It can stand the test of time, and I think it will stand the test of time longer than an actual hand painted mural in some cases. It also has a certain durability factor. So if you got chairs that rub up against the wall, that's a little different if you got it hand painted versus done with vinyl. And so even when it comes to replacement, it's a little easier for the man to step back and to try to fly artists and to try to paint and mimic different things. The other thing is light fastness. Because of the design of this building, I think we want to be in a really good place where we don't have to worry about any ultraviolet rays affecting the outcome of the vinyl. And so that's all I can give you about permanence, but it's always a factor that people are interested in, how long it's going to last. And I think that comes down to the community and how well they take care of it at the end of the day.
The wall coverings now, this should last about 15 years. If it was outside, then you'd be more in the range you talked about, 5 to 7 years because UV light exposure. But because these are inside and even further interior, like
An
interior
interior.
spaces, yeah, you're probably looking at about a 15-year lifespan on the final wall coverings.
Very little direct lights happening during the corridor where we're using a lot of these pieces. And so I think that it even increases the lifespan of those pieces.
My second question was, I just think that there's such a rich level of involvement from artists across the country as well as local artists. Will there be signage recognizing the artists and maybe a brief statement about their work? Is that something that will be incorporated into the installation?
Well, we'll be thinking about that. I mean, naturally, when we start this whole process and we have everybody, because we got to go through some pretty extensive things to get the two African contingencies here. And so we're hoping to do lots of video coverage, lots of documentation of the project, and hopefully that can be utilized at another stage when we start talking about them getting to meet the artists up close. Might be a little media thing we can create, as well as any other signage or markers that we can put throughout the space. And so we haven't actually touched on that yet, but it'll be definitely something we'll be looking at during the process.
Thank you.
Mr. Declan, I got a question on page 13. You're talking about the exterior rendering. Assuming that's a paint applied application.
Yes.
You're also showing it looks like going over the doors and some of the window systems. Concerned about longevity. Talk a little about longevity, especially at those action points where the doors are going. Imagine that's going to get pretty dinged up, pretty marred up over time. I just wonder if that's a good option or if we should not have that mural go over the top of that door because it's going to have to get touched up fairly regularly.
We take certain liberties with renderings, especially when you're only given a certain amount of renderings for things. So again, we took some creative license on going over those doors, but naturally when we get into space, we're going to have to think about function. And so a lot of that will be determined when we get on site, see how things work. Yeah, many of the windows and doors may be painted around. We're looking at primarily the wall space. And we're also talking about putting some other coatings on top of that to kind of give it a little more bite to last a little longer. But yeah, we wouldn't put it in an area that's going to be handled or touched on a regular basis. I'm not really sure if the new entryway will be relied on or whether both entryways will be relied on in this situation. So I think Brian could probably give you more indications about that.
Yeah. The current entry into the center, that will become a very secondary access point or egress only. I can tell you in situations where we have any type of mural or any type of graphic on glass or in an area that's glass, we do have an allowance in a portion of the project to do digitally printed laminated glass. So any imagery would be captured within the glass system itself. I don't believe we have that at that particular location. But we do have it in some interior locations. And as this all comes together, if there's an opportunity to make that continuous across that storefront, but keep it protected and durable, we'll be looking at that.
There is a brick wrapped vinyl that you can get so that you would see it from the outside, but not the inside if you're looking out the window.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, trust me, they have so many different things. I have a little sample, you can't see it here, of two different types of mediums. Yeah. One is solid, one you see the holes. So one you can see through this one, the one right here, but you can't see through that one. So I'm experimenting. This is just one of many samples. As far as the tiles go, there are companies that can actually produce full imagery on tiles. This is an 8x8 tile with fine art on it. And so this is kind of the medium we're planning to use for those treatments where we're using tiles. So these companies are vested companies that have been doing this for years. And I have full faith that they'll be able to do something for us. It's going to be dynamite.
And you asked a question previously about acknowledging the artists. Of course we will. This is like a great opportunity for them. We want everybody to know who did it and what we're representing. We want it to be clear. So I think
Yeah,
that's just a standard thing to make sure we have some signage that says what it is and who it is. Mhm.
and really looking to elevate the Wichita artists that are involved. I mean, you know, we went through a painstaking process of trying to select artists, and so when we do get to that meld with the group, I think it's our job to promote them as much as we can. This would be a great, huge opportunity for some of these artists that are just emerging, just getting into building their own momentum. So this is a big project for them. And it's particularly for my African artists who have never done anything abroad. This is their first US project. And so from an artist standpoint, this is a great opportunity for everybody that's involved.
Questions?
I had a similar question as Chad about the exterior mural. Is that on the east facing wall?
That is on the west facing wall on the exterior. So
So
faces,
it'll have a lot of sun, heavy sun on that. Just make sure you keep that in mind. I think you talked about the longevity of it, but it'll have a lot of hot sun during the summer months.
Well, the mural treatment is really organic. So I mean, there's going to be so many details in that we don't have to really worry about how it fades. It's I think it's going to hold up because it's hand painting. You got different layers of paint, and then what you decide to coat it with also affects it as well. So I mean, despite the fact that that gets a lot of light, um, you know, I still think that that is the best way to treat that wall rather than trying to do an external fabrication on that particular wall. It's not even a flat wall; it has different ridges on it, so that's
Yeah.
already going to make the project a little bit more complicated than it appears to be. But not for the team that I'm working with.
that's what I was going to say. There's a lot of variation in the surface of that wall. It's concrete that's been painted originally. There are some different shapes on it and things like that. And this mural will kind of even all of that out and add its own layer of detail and complexity to it as well.
And it's also the type of mural that if by chance we do experience fading, the lines will be there. And so any artist, if we decide to later on freshen it up or do different things with this would be an easy piece to follow rather than if we did something that was ultra realistic and it required a lot of treatment. So that was part of why we selected this particular design because it was user friendly and repair friendly.
I have something. Bill Gardner, who's not here, not able to be here this morning. Bill, let's see. Sorry, everyone. Oh, never mind. Different item.
I think Janet, the only thing I had was those 2D artifacts that Ella had mentioned a couple times there. Are those items going to be the cities if they're used on the project, or how does that work? If they're just mementos and artifacts, personal artifacts, mementos from the family?
Well, my first preference would be to replicate them, not to use the originals, because they're like, then we can control what size that we want them to be, because they're like, you know, how we used to always get our photos printed at Walgreens type of thing. It's like that. Some of them are like that, and that's not a scale that would lend itself to this space. So the primary thing is that we'll use those. We may enlarge them, you know, crop some. So it wouldn't be the originals necessarily. That wouldn't be my preference. I have been taking care of them with love, and we're going to go through and talk about what would be the best to work along with next to the artwork and then give the originals back.
Another thing to add to that too is that, you know, there's a wonderful collaging opportunity with a lot of those artifacts. And so by the time we get into the space, of course, we were given the amount of photography and renderings to this space to work with, but there are also nooks and crannies that we are not aware of at this point in that space. And so I'm hoping to be able to really engage that artifact issue with a series of collages that may depict a better cross section of Mr. Brewer's past. without having to alter those original documents, because we have to take a certain amount of respect for those things. But all of them can be digitized and reutilized.
Thanks for the clarification. So I think the overwhelming theme from our end of things, and thank you, Brian and Larry and Ella, for the presentation. Very insightful. But I think longevity and maintainability, I think, were the biggest keys or the biggest thoughts that we had on our end of things. It seems like, at this point, again, refreshing the fact that they're here presenting their 90% design concept. Do I have a motion for the proposal? Do we want to add anything in there about just keeping an eye on the longevity and maintainability of the vinyl and the other materials that are being used as part of it?
You want to state that?
How do you want to state that?
Accepted with the condition, I suppose, that there is consideration for the longevity of the vinyl, specifically the exterior west facade vinyl mural.
The exterior's paint.
Correct.
Sorry.
Yeah.
You mean the interior vinyl applications?
Both the exterior paint and the interior vinyl.
So just generally keep an eye on maintainability and durability of materials used in all applications.
Yep.
Second on that, anyone? All in favor? Pose same sign. It's like it approved unanimously. Thank you guys for your presentation.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a great afternoon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Next up, we have Timothy Kellums and John Filbert presenting on the Holocaust Memorials proposal. Design Council, the recommended action here is to approve the proposal as presented. So, John.
Hello, my name is Tim Kellums, Public Works and Utilities, but working on a lot of park projects. I don't have a whole lot to mention on this one. I know we have a number of guests here that have prepared this presentation. I guess one thing to note, and I'm sure they'll get into, is that this Holocaust Memorial will be outside the Veterans Memorial Park. So it's not technically inside Veterans Memorial Park, but nearby. This was also presented to Park Board. I believe that would have been September or maybe in August, and was approved at Park Board. So wanted to bring it here for you all to see. I can call invite our guests now if they have any for their presentation. But if you have any questions related to Park or anything how it relates to the city, here to help answer those questions. We also have John Filbert here and Ernie Abiali to answer any other questions from the city staff.
And good morning, and thanks very much for having us here today. I am here representing Robert Kaplan. Bob has been a lawyer here in Wichita for as long as any of us can probably remember. He's been a longtime client of mine, and so when he called upon me and some of his other professional partners for this project, it was an honor. This is something that he's visioned for a very long time, and we're happy that the city of Wichita Parks, we've gotten a lot of support. The flip over that this works and just kind of point out some of these groups that have worked with us. Just we provided some guidance from Rabbi Mike Davis. He again has been a longtime family friend of mine. Phil Meyer, Preston Stewart, there at Hoffman. And again, I wanted to extend some appreciation to John Phil has been a real guiding force on this, as well as Robert Layton, Councilwoman Ballard, and of course, made mention myself and Ben Barker in my office. Also wanted to point out my daughter actually helped me with this PowerPoint. Troy encouraged me to shine it up a little bit. And I would normally lean on Emma over there if my daughter hadn't come through. But anyway, so again, also wanted to point out, I had told Bob early that I could definitely support him with design, material selections, construction documents, but really needed guidance when it came to the historical importance, the educational component. So he recruited a longtime friend of his, Charles Harris, and the two gentlemen have selected the material, the language on these plaques. This is not only intended to bring awareness of the atrocities, but also to pay tribute to those in Wichita and Kansas, the liberators. And, you know, I see this as being a dedication to my grandfather as well. So our initial idea was to be part of the Veterans Park. We quickly, with some assistance from Troy, came to understand their strict guidance or governance would not allow a memorial that was not one of our branches of one of the conflicts. Very understandable. And we were very fortunate that Wichita had previously dedicated this small reserve to the northwest of the Memorial Park. This is just underneath Evergy's Control Center. That's 777 building. It's got a beautiful backdrop. Materialism of the back. We'll see that in some of the photographs. It's somewhat supportive of the era that we're trying to, I guess, honor. You turn opposite when exiting this site, and we get a wonderful view of Discovery Place. So, or Exploration Place, excuse me. So really happy with this location. It is fairly low setting. And after Bachman staked this out and walked it out a few more times, I have made minor adjustments to the concrete accessible path leading to it and exiting from it. One of the statements in our park guidance was for a citizen comment, of course, trying to preserve every tree possible. And so we've made minor adjustments, moving it forward just a few more feet to make it more visually apparent from the primary path to the south. Kind of a, I don't know, as you come around that curve, you get a really nice glance to the northwest. You see at kind of a point of rise, and then the path being singular. I think sometimes people hesitate to go down a path that they have to double backwards. So the singular path with the division around the pedestrian light pole at the north edge of the primary path and so forth. This is I think, a really good and strong development. Again, there's a little closer. The island again houses a granite pole, a light pole. There's also some utility with irrigation box in that area. We will have to diminish or refurbish the plantings there on the north side, but from some of the future photos, you'll see that this is an area that I think we're going to leave it better than we found it. It's really needs a little bit of TLC. The metal edge banding around the landscape is deteriorated, and I think this project is going to help that area. The actual layout, this is fairly modest sized memorial. This is 20-foot diameter. The point of arrival will be at the bottom of the circular form. We're going to transition the pavement from standard and accessible concrete to more of a rumbled paver. These, of course, will not, they will need accessibility. You know, no more than 1/4 inch vertical of change of elevation. But yet, again, affordable, and again, trying to get to the material, the texture of entering the space. The entirety is all going to be of concrete and or marble. The center, which you can see at the top left, is going to be sloped on all sides. We anticipate a cast architectural concrete. You're going to see an image in following slides of a distressed finish, bringing some age and some appearance of age. I think all of us have probably seen photographs that stick in our mind of the Holocaust, the time, the era, the materials. It's what we're trying to achieve. Another application on the back 6 educational plaques is the use of what's called board form concrete. So we're actually looking for that older school appearance. Look through that. The sequencing of the plaque is from left to right. We will start with Hitler and his coming to power. It provides a lot of inspirational quotes and words from survivors. And it speaks also to Eisenhower, our commander, who made it his business at the time to document so well the photographs. And at the time, he even made a statement, and I'm paraphrasing, that he recognized that some people would deny what had happened. So his vision is a big part of our knowledge today. People at the plaque, again, are committed to informing people how something like this could happen, how when you ignore us, when you look away, you can have things happen. To close, again, I hope you'll take time to read these. Again, Eisenhower, his connections to Kansas and his important role is recognized there on the right. Again, another home and a little more of a tribute to those in Kansas that were committed to liberation. And then in the center, recognizing 6 million, not just Jews, but Roma, people with disabilities. We consulted with the monument companies relative to the scale of text and the preferred style. It's recommended that we proceed with a Roman, Times Roman, recommended minimal scale of text being 3/4 inch. Some of these words have been brought up to 1 inch. And Bob Kaplan has indicated it's important to him also to get a real strong visual contrast if we do the engravings and they're not vivid. So we're going to be working with the monuments group as soon as we get through the approvals process. That'll be one of our next steps, is to really perfect this. I mean, even some of this text in regards to the limitations of my drafting software, the quotes won't be kicked the right way. So looking forward to that next stage to take our recommended layouts and make those even better. Another set of eyes to proofread. So looking forward to that. You can see by the scale and the size, the elevation that I can kick back to, but really trying to put this in front of everyone. One of the things that most of you probably experience when you look at a very polished based marble, there's a reflection. You're looking at the text and yourself and those people around you. So that human component is important. Sorry. There we go. So the cobblestone pavers, these are obviously not authentic. These are cast stone. They're not going to be a fluoride product, but locally available. And like I said, I wanted to change the texture from standard concrete to something more immersive. This is the distress concrete. You can see there's visually, there's scrapes, there's a discolor, or they don't wash this, so they're leave the formwork you know, I even hesitate to call it architectural concrete because that speaks to a very high level of finish. We do want it very smooth, monolithic, but at the more micro level, we're perfectly fine with discoloration, aging, signs of aging, and so that's going to be on the center monument. The marble or granite will be inlaid into the cap stone. So there'll be a 3-inch inlay, or excuse me, a 1-inch inlay, and the black marble will be 3 inches outboard. It'll be smooth on sides and face, probably cut on sides and smooth polished face. This is again an example of board form concrete, really looking to accomplish this. I've had discussions with Barron Concrete, industry friend, and actually this was to his credit. Brock was watching a documentary of World War II, and he mentioned he was really interested in this. It was just the night before we discussed it. He shared the idea with me, and in this you can see that the board or the form boards are actually gapped out. They're not closed perfectly, and that allows that grout or that mortar or excuse me, concrete to come out and give this a texture. I think that'll be all the proposed structure for the 6 educational plaques will be formed into the board form. And then again, in the center of that will be the marble. These are a little bit small. I hope you can see them on your packages in front of you. But you know, one of the important components, whether it was Oklahoma City bombing, a lot of our different parts sequence that you go through, that was an important aspect for me when looking at opportunity. And I think when we come from the parking lot, as I think many visitors will, and they round that long curve to the west, and they come up this northwest oriented primary wall. Again, as I mentioned, from the east closer, that image up in the upper right kind of expresses the view that you're going to see as you're approaching. With that large tree, I see my mouse here, but this dark tree is just going to be to the south of our position. So a nice glance on approach. As you get to the point, this is the area of the sidewalk where we connect. There will be an island left for this light pole, and there's a small irrigation box. There will be some plantings there, but we will have to remove some fairly mature plantings and shrubs along the north edge of that sidewalk to accomplish that. And then if you were approaching from the north to northwest, the bottom right-hand corner talked about kind of that glimpse, point of arrival, you know, so you'll see it through the back side of the Vietnam Memorial to our left and be able to see just a glimpse of this. This shows a wonderful backdrop with the Evergy building, and using forms and material that was common of the 1930s, 40s. I haven't looked at the actual date of construction or design for that Evergy building, but it's, as long as I can remember, been a West Star, you know, component and a feature in Wichita. And then again, if you go straight down from that and you turn from facing north to facing directly south, we're very fortunate to have this view of exploration. It's going to be the point of departure, maybe more uplifting, inspirational. Again, facing south, and just this exit, you can see the irrigation box, some of the shrubs that we're going to need to remove to connect. But again, little disrepair, something that we're going to look forward to cleaning up and re-edging. The actual area, again, we have site conditions that are going to be improved with this memorial. That center, there's actually 4 shops. I know there's a lot of glare, daylighting of this image, but there are 4 shops on that north side of our memorial site. They're not actually spot on where we're going to be working, but within close proximity and anticipate removing those. I just wanted to include a recent memorial installation. It was Operation Freedom Desert Storm. It's on the path towards where we're going. It has some recent mediated several walks that have been added and tied to the asphalt, which is the primary path. This is an asphalt surface. And you can see they just kind of cut that edge, made a really good and clean transition for those in wheelchairs. This is the and it sets out, but actually that memorial you're seeing on the left is the one that's directly to the north of us. This is not, it doesn't meet the Memorial Falls guidelines either, in that it's dedicated to the other soldiers of the Vietnam War, not the American soldiers, but the other contributing soldiers from other nations. So that's how strict that governance is. They've asked them to take an adjacency, and that's what I think why the city made that land available. Again, looking further north, you can see the accessible symbol, the very northwest corner of our site, the pin right there. Very thin triangle. We were really happy to make and find a place to fit on that side. I'm going to go back to the primary design. See if there might be any questions. Can I help you?
Thank you. Yeah, again, at this time, if there's any public comments or questions, we'll take those at this point. None. First time, Janelle gets to be the first here, so we'll go around the room for design council. Any questions and comments you have on the proposal?
Yeah, I really don't have anything to add. I think it's fun to seamless. And that location just seems such a great fit. I don't.
From a lighting perspective, are you planning to light this so that it can be visible at night, or at least?
Yeah, at
there?
this point, we do not. It's a great discussion and area to continue development. The city maintains the lighting, I believe the irrigation in that particular area. We're fortunate to have the point of decision from the main walk up to, that one pedestrian light post. I think we need to take that into recommendation as we move forward, but I also, I get fear, vandalism and so forth. I think the Veterans Park has been really fortunate. I mean, there have been some occurrences of vandalism. I think the lighting would help. Just a little. Thank you.
Well, and speaking of vandalism, Brent Thomas, who was not able to be here today, wanted to ask about if there's any cameras or surveillance in the park to deter vandalism. Yeah.
No, not to my knowledge. There is lighting for the pedestrian pathway that goes through there, as is the trails along the river. So there's lighting in the area, but there's no, to my knowledge, individual lights for individual memorials, nor cameras.
I don't think I have anything. Is this the first Holocaust memorial that will be in Wichita?
Mr. Kaplan, I'm going to ask you to answer that. It's my belief that this will be the first dedicated. I can't speak to maybe smaller versions, whether the Temple Manuel had a version within their congregation or the synagogue. I'm not sure. But as far as I believe publicly, I believe that's correct. Bob, do you know, can you tell me, is this the first Wichita memorial?
Yeah, Matt.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to come up to you. John?
I don't know if there's any other memorials to the Holocaust. They want to know if there's any other memorials Holocaust in Wichita, either private or.
No, they're around the country. There are quite a number of them. There are quite a number of memorials. Baltimore, Maryland is uh, sponsored by the state of Maryland statutorily passed legislation setting up the Baltimore Memorial. Portland, Oregon has a very, very large memorial, and there are a number of others. Most of them are on the computer. Portland is extremely large, built, probably 20 years ago. But yeah, there are a number of memorials around the country. I felt that this was an appropriate time for it, circumstances being what they are around the world. I can go into it in a little more detail in about 2 or 3 minutes if anybody's interested. Started with an indemnification law passed by West Germany after World War II. Didn't have anybody in the Holocaust, but I represented a number of Holocaust survivors who found their way to Wichita. The stories they told about the Nazi atrocities, and the suffering and the death, actually, they executed about 11 million people, population the size of Topeka. 6 million Jews, 5 million non-Jews, the Roma, the handicapped, the mentally retarded, the sexual deviants, anybody, as Mr. Philbrick put it, anybody that was different. And I'd love to tell you their stories. I can't get through them. Emotionally, I can't handle them. The atrocities were beyond belief. You would tell me that you wouldn't believe what I was telling you. You can't believe what they did. The Nazi Party. People ask me to repeat what my clients told me about what they went through in the concentration and death camps. I just tell them I can't do it. I can't do it. I cry. It's that horrible. It's beyond belief. Beyond belief what they did. Absolutely beyond belief. And I think it's very, very appropriate, very important. The Maryland, the one in Baltimore, the state sponsored, is a beautiful site. Has one simple sentence on the plaque. One said, those who fail to remember, likely to repeat. So we must not forget. We must not forget.
Thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. Relative to what, buying a book, feel it important, donating it to a library. This has been an honor for me. I know that this is going to last a long time. The information that's going to be included is critical, important. Wish we could go on. I hope people will take the time to read those plaques. Spend a moment in the memorial. Our next step after this, of course, would be to present, contingent on your approvals, to the council. There will be some continued minor level design development as we work with the plaque company. We have conversations, as you mentioned, about lighting, landscape materials, minor development area, but again, the site is ready to go. It's a great location. I did want to mention in surveying the site, for somebody neglected, if we raise up, we are in a relatively level flat area. We're fortunate to have a stormwater inlet just to the north of the site. So any water that we might impede based on our improvements will be handled. I think it's going to be pretty easy to get in there. It's small.
Matt, generally speaking, what's the timeline for construction and what have you?
Can't speak to that at this point. I know that he doesn't want me to talk about it, and Mr. Kaplan is making a financial contribution. We're going to have to spend a little time looking at the costs, and then it's possibly going into a capital campaign. I think other families as, just like the Kaplans here in Wichita are gonna want to probably be part of this. And it'll be important to the family.
Any other comments from design council?
I think it would be worthwhile to work with a copy editor. That's for it.
Yeah, Charles Harris is steeped in historical knowledge, but to your point, we do have a friend, and I'm going to blank on his name, at Wichita State University, who wrote a book about the family, the Jewish families that came to Kansas and Wichita between the two wars, World War I and World War II. There's relationships there, and that might be a perfect person to work on. Thank you.
And the idea is that you're looking for our approval on this proposal, or as presented is what it is. Sounds like per Tim, there's no other lighting or anything on the side, but that is still something you guys are going to be looking at in terms of memorial specific. Is that correct? I thought you said something about that, Matt, as you're speaking there.
Well, I just need their guidance. If they feel like additional path lighting would be important. It's pretty close to the main, but we could talk about that.
Sure. Yeah, I don't think the city would be opposed to it.
Steve to return their final design.
Council, would
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Bob has been, and every time I work with Bob, he's this way, but specifically on this project, he strongly encouraged me to move as quickly as possible. So I would like to take your advisement and motion if I could, so we can proceed to council.
Design council, any other thoughts? Anyone have a motion? Anyone?
Make a motion to approve.
You wanted to read?
I mean, I don't have any changes to their, to the memorial. So I would approve it as presented.
We need to see them back. If they determine anything with lighting, or are we good to let them go? Matt, you had a.
I think we should. I mean, I think it'd be beneficial for this memorial to have some lighting components to it, but that's, again, my thoughts. From your perspective, you would probably agree.
I would agree. You stole my point there with the lighting. So, I mean, I do appreciate needing to be speedy about this, but I think to Matt Cortez's point, I think there is something of importance for the lighting to create a little bit of significance and uniqueness to allow people to see that at any time point during the evening.
You want to go ahead and change it since it's your.
I'll go ahead and amend it. You know, I'd like with the thought that you come back if you have lighting design components added to it.
And I respect with the city. The center memorial, if we took a single point light and shined it to get